Welcome everyone. My name is Sean, and today we got to talk about what is going on with this back and forth battle between the state of Texas and between the city of New York, because the state of Texas may have just checkmated Mayor Eric Adams, who recently issued a new ordinance to effectively close the border of New York City while still pretending to be a sanctuary city and welcoming to all the migrants, of course. And I think that this is a hilarious development and quite a clever move by Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Now we're going to get into it, but before we do, I want to thank everybody who signed up over on actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
And thank you to my podcast listeners, Spotify, Apple, and Google's podcasting platform. Oh, and by the way, everybody who didn't watch my video about an entire driveway being stolen, you're my enemy forever. That video was amazing and you missed out. So let's break this down really quickly so that you guys can understand how we got here, and then you could understand the latest development. So really quickly, a bunch of cities in the United States of America, typically left-wing cities, happen to be what is called sanctuary cities. Now, these policies have been in place in New York and in Chicago for a long period of time. Some of them go back to the 90s, some of them actually go back well before those periods of time, and there are many reasons why people say that these are actually solid and good policies. However, during the Trump administration, because Trump campaigned so viciously against illegal immigration, and by the way, that absolutely worked, a bunch of these cities decided that they were going to expand their sanctuary city protections in order to own the evil orange man. And one of the reasons why they did this is because these cities are nowhere near the United States and Mexico border. So a perfect example of this is New York. New York has a right to shelter. They expanded those benefits to illegal immigrants. They made it damn near impossible for the NYPD to work with ICE, and Chicago did something similar. In fact, the Chicago ordinance signed by Mayor Lori Lightfoot was called the Welcoming Ordinance. Then, all of a sudden, Trump is out of office, Biden is the president of the United States, and migrants start surging to the border. And like has been true for decades, border states are expected to bear the brunt of this. And these migrants actually have gotten more clever than past migrants. It used to be migrants would come to the border and they try to sneak past Border Patrol. However, that's not actually what's going on now. Now, all of these migrants claim asylum because that gets you certain benefits for at least 6 months, and due to the backlog, actually for years, and allows you to stay and work in the United States in perpetuity and be on the taxpayer dime in the area that you land. So Texas Governor Greg Abbott, among many other border governors, decided that they weren't having it. They decided that they were going to send the migrants to the places that said that they wanted them, like New York City, the same places that voted for Joe Biden on a national level. And thus, we have New York City Mayor, Chicago Mayor, and all these other left-wing mayors declaring a state of emergency, due in large part to the fact that migrants actually cost money, and it was very easy to say that you're pro-illegal immigration when you don't have to deal with people crossing into your border, and now they're paying the cost of it. And Eric Adams has been freaking out about this.
Never in my life have I had a problem that I did not see an ending to. I don't see an ending to this. I don't see an ending to this. This issue will destroy New York City. Destroy New York City. We're getting 10,000 migrants a month. One time we were just getting Venezuela. Now we're getting Ecuador. Now we're getting Russian-speaking coming through Mexico. Now we're getting Western Africa. Now we're getting people from all over the globe have made their minds up that they're going to come through the southern part of the border and come into New York City. And everyone is saying it's New York City's problem. Every community in this city is going to be impacted. We got a $12 billion deficit that we're going to have to cut. Every service in this city is going to be impacted.
In fact, all of these left-wing mayors have been freaking out about this, and one of the funniest freakouts actually is from the Chicago mayor, who said that this was a plot by Greg Abbott in order to bring back slavery with that 400-year-old agenda, and he was angry at Mayor Brandon Johnson for being a free black man because, of course, everything is related to evil white racism.
It's the same right-wing extremism that refuses to accept the results of the Civil War as political tools to settle political scores for something that happened 400 years ago. They're still mad that a black man is free in this country.
But while that rhetoric is ridiculous and hilarious, that's not the interesting part. That's not the hilarious part, because one of the things that Brendan Johnson started doing, which was copied in a more extreme way in the city of New York, was start to put in restrictions against Texas bus companies in order to make sure that we have notice of when these illegal migrants come to the city of Chicago, make sure that we know who these people are, and make sure they only arrive at the agreed upon times. And of course, that was set arbitrarily by the city of Chicago.
And so we've put forth very clear guidelines. You can drop families off. Buses can come to the city of Chicago between these particular hours. We have to have a 48-hour notice. We need a full manifest. We need to know who is on the bus.
And these border restrictions sound absolutely amazing for our nation, but are obviously ridiculous and absurd when you talk about it in terms of a city in the United States of America. Not to mention they're incredibly hypocritical because you don't get all this notice, you don't get to know who these people are or any of those things when you arrive at the US-Mexico border, but somehow the city of Chicago is entitled to this because if you don't do this for them, you're an evil white racist guilty of evil white racism. Well, Eric Adams actually took it a step further. And by the way, let us be clear, these restrictions are sensible for our nation to have to prevent people from flooding the border like they are, but effectively, they are these sanctuary cities trying to ban the migrants from coming there without actually saying that they're against their own sanctuary city policies.
First, it will require that charter buses transporting migrants give New York City at least 32 hours advance notice that they are arriving. 2, it will require that these charter buses arrive only between 8:30 a.m. and 12 p.m., Monday through Friday. And 3, all buses can only drop off migrants at one designated spot.
In Eric Adams' order, he actually makes it a misdemeanor, a crime. You will be arrested for dropping off migrants to any other location but Grand Central Station. On top of that, you can only drop them off Monday through Friday. You have to provide notice 32 hours in advance, and the times that you're able to drop them off are 8:30 a.m. to noon. So obviously what we're seeing right here is the instituting of border protections for the city of New York and for the city of Chicago. However, Governor Greg Abbott is not going to be undone like this. He's already started sending migrants to Chicago via the airplanes, and this is because the FAA, some people accidentally say the FDA, runs the skies and they can't prevent the migrants from landing at O'Hare Airport. However, New York City is a very public transportation heavy kind of location, so what Abbott has done to New York City is essentially enlisted the New Jersey governor to ensure that the migrants continue to pour into their sanctuary city, and it's absolutely hilarious.
Good morning, Dana Tishani. Well, I hate to say this, but we did kind of see this coming. So what some of these bus companies are doing is, instead of trying to drop off migrants here at the Port Authority bus terminal between 8:30 and 12:30 Monday through Friday, what they're doing is dropping off migrants at different cities and towns in New Jersey. Some of these migrants are now taking trains and eventually finding their way here to New York City.
Absolute genius from Texas Governor Greg Abbott. They put all these restrictions in the city of New York. By the way, these restrictions are unconstitutional. Everybody knows it. Mayor Eric Adams knows it. But the thing is, what he's trying to do is have Governor Abbott sue him, not send any migrants while this is worked out over the course of months, if not years in the court system, and then have that adjudicated later, but in the interim, not have to deal with the migrants. But Governor Abbott says, no, I'm going to drop these people off right in New Jersey, right outside the border, and they're going to go over via train to New York City because you can't restrict that. Absolutely hilarious, absolute boss move from Texas Governor Greg Abbott. And again, it just goes to show you that the border restrictions, when they're being subverted and you get angry about it, that should be something we should think about nationally, not just for the city of New York, not just for the city of Chicago, which, by the way, Governor Abbott is now dropping off the migrants in the suburbs right outside the city of Chicago. So people who live in those areas are trying to push them into the interim of the city rather than have to deal with them in the suburbs. Greg Abbott has checkmated you, Mayor Eric Adams. Now go to the Biden administration and tell him you've had enough with the migrants. The Democrats need to turn on this issue in order for us to get something positive out of this whole crisis, which is a more secure border and a bigger crackdown on asylum fraud.
New Jersey cities and towns are now feeling the effects of Mayor Adams' latest executive order on migrant arrivals. Secaucus Junction is just one of the sites where migrants have been dropped off to take take trains to New York City.
From here, it's probably like a 5-7 minute ride from here to Penn Station in Manhattan.
Secaucus's mayor writing in a statement, it seems quite clear the bus operators are finding a way to thwart the requirements of the executive order by dropping migrants at the train station in Secaucus and having them continue to their final destination.
Again, it's genius in every possible way. If you're going to prevent migrants from entering New York City, well, guess what? There's a bunch of places in New Jersey where you can be dropped off, you can hop on a train, and within 5 to 7 minutes, you will be in the heart of downtown Manhattan. So no, Mayor Eric Adams, you are not going to get out of the migrant crisis that the city of New York asked for, that the state of New York asked for, with their various sanctuary city laws and the expansions of those laws under the Trump administration when Bill de Blasio was the mayor.
Mayor Adams' executive order requires bus companies that are transporting migrants to give a 32-hour notice before arriving. It only allows drop-offs near the Port Authority bus terminal Monday through Friday between 8:30 in the morning and noon. The rule was put in place to give officials more time to figure out where to place and house migrants. This comes after 14 buses arrived in New York City in one day.
We cannot allow buses with people needing our help to arrive without warning at any hour of day and night.
You wanted to do virtue signaling executive orders. The Democratic Party as a whole said that they wanted to have people surge to the border. They wanted to decriminalize illegal border crossing. Well, guess what? Now they're crossing your border. You want to ban them? Not going to happen. They're going to figure out ways to subvert it that you cannot control, because this is exactly what they're doing at the U.S. border. And Texas Governor Greg Abbott has promised repeatedly that he is going to bring the border crisis to the very cities, to the very same Democratic strongholds that vote for this stuff on the national level. You want change? Demand change from the federal government, because they're the ones not enforcing the border.
Over the weekend, Jersey City posted on X, approximately 10 buses from various locations in Texas and one from Louisiana have arrived at various transit stations throughout the state, including Secaucus, Fanwood, Edison, and Trenton. Jersey City is working with Governor Murphy about what their next steps will be.
Now again, to be clear, I'm not against border restrictions. I'm not against the city of New York wanting some notice or the city of Chicago wanting some notice, but the problem is we don't get that notice on a national level. These people don't support policies that would institute that for our nation's border, so the idea that they can claim to be sanctuary cities, that they can say that they're welcome, that they can call all the border states that have had to pay for surges of migrants throughout decades in our nation's history evil white racists when they bring up the costs associated with these migrants, and then all of a sudden when it starts to affect them, start to whine about how it's unfair and all that. I'm not having it. I'm not interested in it. And by the way, Eric Adams, you need to figure out where to put these migrants, because as we've seen, after you house them in midtown hotels at very expensive costs in some of the most luxurious areas of New York City, they then refuse to go to the shelters because I guess beggars can be choosers, and they are choosing that they want to live in the most luxurious places in the world. And by the way, they're advocates, these people on the ground, the nonprofits, they are feeding that entitlement. I love playing this clip. I'm gonna have to play it for you guys again, where the migrants were protesting being evicted from the hotel that was at 57th Street near around Central Park, where one of their advocates demanded that the city of New York put them up in Billionaires Row in the most luxurious apartments probably in the world, if not around the top luxurious apartments in the world.
Volunteer advocates argue the city should put these migrants in some of the most expensive pieces of real estate in the world.
He could have easily, along with Governor Hochul, opened up all the vacant luxury apartments. We are on 57th Street right now. This is Billionaires Row. Half of the super towers on this street are empty.
Of course, that begs the question, who would pay for all those luxury apartments?
And that's the big farce of this whole so-called asylum crisis, is that these people are economic migrants. We all know that. They're coming here for the benefits. Even though the Texas governor is trying to send the migrants to New York, most of the people that arrive in New York and that arrive in Chicago arrive there for the public benefits that they hear about on the other side of the border. And it turns out they start to demand and get used to being taken care of with the top level of care, to the point where they not only don't want to go to the shelters, but their advocates want them to have luxury apartments on Billionaires Row. Again, some of the most expensive real estate in the entire world.
We cannot allow buses with people needing our help to arrive without warning at any hour of day and night. This not only prevents us from providing assistance in an orderly way, it puts those who have already suffered so much in danger.
You hear that from Eric Adams? You're sending these people here without warning. There's no time for us to prepare from them. They're just surging the border of New York City, and we have to instill some order on the New York City border, but not the nationwide border. We all understand what is happening. Everything Eric Adams is saying right there is true. I understand it, but it should be true for the United States of America. You should not be praised if you're Eric Adams for sealing the border of New York City, but then condemned as an evil white racist for wanting some kind of order, some kind of restrictions at the border of our country. Now, I've talked about this before, and I'll say it again. Under the Trump administration, maximum in the immigration court backlog, we had 1.2 million cases. Under the Biden administration, we have hit over 3 million. Some of these people have court dates 7 years down the line, 8 years down the line, maybe even 10 years down the line. Obviously, they're going to set up and establish lives here, have children that are American citizens, and they're never, even if their asylum claim is adjudicated fraudulent, going to be able to be removed from this nation. It's an absolute disaster in every possible way, and the idea that you can get away with supporting this on a national level, but then cry about it when it starts to affect you is ridiculous and absurd. Even Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks acknowledges that the Texas governor's policies of sending the migrants to the sanctuary cities makes sense, and it's good policy, and it exposes hypocrisy.
So look, I said this on day one. I'm gonna repeat it even with greater fervor today. I think that what Texas did makes sense. And so I know that a lot of people on the left don't want to hear that, but think about it, guys. So they had this immigration problem all along, and it wasn't spread out to many different states. It was just in Texas, and of course the other border states. And the federal government kept saying, I don't care, okay? And the border states said, why? Why do we have to shoulder all of this by ourselves? And started shipping it to other places that were more left wing and said they were more open to immigrants. So you're open to immigrants, here you go, here's immigrants. And now all of a sudden New York realizes, okay, well, being open to immigrants has consequences, right? And they're trying to adjust the best they can, and they're trying to be as welcoming as they can, but obviously some anger is building. And so why does Texas have to just deal with it? We all should deal with it, and it's of course a federal issue.
Yeah, that's right. It's so obvious that even Cenk Uygur, who is notorious for not getting it, gets it.
Mayor Adams said the executive order is not meant to stop migrants from coming to the Big Apple, but allow for better coordination.
Look, that is obviously not true. The point of this order, the point of the Chicago order, is to prevent people from coming to the border. We all know this. When Eric Adams went to the border, it was to convince people not to show up in New York City. When Brendan Johnson went with his aldermen, despite what he told the public about how he was trying to welcome these people.
Look, Pastor Will Hall, who's also an alderman of the 6th Ward, visited the border. He saw the chaos firsthand. And so part of our effort to go to the border was to make sure that there was better coordination with the flow of migrants who are seeking asylum here.
That very same alderman told the local news, and there's video of him telling the migrants that they have no resources for them, that they're going to sleep on the concrete in the snow, possibly freeze to death, because the goal of these left-wing mayors is to prevent the migrants from showing up on their doorstep.
6th Ward Alderman Will Hall, who traveled to the border a few weeks ago, says word is spreading on social media among migrants that Chicago may not be the best place to come. And border nonprofits say not as many people are asking to come to Chicago.
Well, people are beginning to get informed that it's cold, the opportunities are scarce, and that unless you want to sleep on a concrete mattress, don't come. And that's what those who have come seeking asylum have said.
They want them to flood the nation. They want them to invade all these border states, but they don't actually want to experience the consequences of what they advocate for. They thought for a long time, because Chicago is thousands of miles away from the border, because New York is thousands of miles away from the border, that they could advocate for these positions, but never actually have to suffer the consequences of it. Well, guess what? The bill has come due, and you're on the hook for it. So either demand change at the federal level, or just suck it up and keep paying for those migrants, keep hoteling them in the best hotels in your entire respective city. Now look, those are just my thoughts related to this immigration crisis, but I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Do you think it's fair to have border restrictions only for the city of Chicago, only for the city of New York? Or do you think we need those border restrictions nationwide? Or are you an open borders type and you think all these migrants should just flood in from Africa, from everywhere, through the southern border, because they're definitely claiming asylum, even though they passed through 5 or 6 countries where they also could have claimed asylum, but they're going with their first choice, the United States of America, because they're obviously economic migrants? I want to know what you guys think. Let me know down in the comments below. If you like this video, then show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about Governor Greg Abbott outsmarting Eric Adams. Till next time.